This is Microsoft Word. You've all seen it, I imagine. The screen layout is the same as, or very similar to other Office products in that you've got the title bar at the top saying the name of the document and the name of the application. You've got the Windows controls to the right-hand side for minimizing it, so you can put it down to the bottom of the screen while you check an email, or restore down to make it resizable and repositionable, so you can have it take up half the screen, and then the other half of the screen might be your email software or a spreadsheet, so that you can drag things between the applications. And then, of course, you've got the close button for getting rid of it. Over here, we've got the quick access toolbar on the left of the screen. And there's a whole bunch of things on there which are handy. We've got the save button. And I'm not going to go into the whole thing about that being a disk. And people going, but it's square, but it's a disk. Why would I click on a disk anyway? So you've got the save button, which is a life jacket now. And that makes more sense than a square disk that no one understands why you click on it. New documents, open documents, and a macro I created last time we was doing Word stuff. If you want to add to your quick access toolbar, you can do it by clicking on the drop down, and then there's a whole bunch of popular options here, like what's popular? I don't know, quick print or email a document. You can click on more commands, and then in there you've got a lot more things to choose from. Or if I go to all commands, every single feature or function that's available in Word is now listed, or will be when it comes up. There we go. And then you can add any of them to the quick access toolbar by just double clicking on it, or clicking once and clicking on add. And then when you say OK, it's now there on the quick access toolbar. Ta-da! But I don't want it, so I'm going to right mouse click and say remove. So that's a quick access toolbar. Then we've got the ribbon. And then what you have to do with this is think about what kind of thing you want to do. So, for example, if I want to do a spell check, that's the sort of thing I do when I've finished the document. I'm double checking the contents of it, reviewing it, how it's designed, and therefore I would find that on the review tab. If I click on review, there's the button for spell check. And if I wanted to insert a picture into my document, then of course I would go to the insert tab. And then when you've gone to the right tab, there we go, pictures, ta-da. Then you have groups, like these groups, and within the groups there are loads of buttons that relate to that thing, like the font group, and many of them also have a flyout. And that little flyout gives you a more comprehensive but old school style dialog box, which if you click on that, has got a lot more options in it. And by a lot more, I mean normally like one or two that you can't find on the buttons. So main work area there, and then down the bottom we've got the status bar, which has got a few things that you can turn on and off, but I'm not going to get into that. But the most useful thing is the zoom slider, which makes it look bigger or smaller without changing the formatting of the document. So sometimes you want it to look big so you can actually read the text. Other times you want it to look smaller so you get more text on the screen. And we can adjust it using this percent bar down here by dragging or clicking on the percentage. Or we can just do my personal favourite, which is holding down the control key and using the wheel on the mouse to zoom in or to zoom out, like so. So that's the screen layout. Typing in Word, you type stuff like that, and then you hit return. Not very technical, but when you want to type a lot of stuff, you just keep typing. I bet that makes a hell of a racket on the webcam. Try and type quietly. And you get to the end of the row even, and it just wraps round. I know this is really ultra basic, but I did say it's a basic course. So you don't hit return at the end of a line unless you've completed a paragraph or unless you've completed a sentence that represents a title. It's got a red squiggles under it because, believe it or not, those aren't real words. But what we can do to format things is we can make the margins smaller or paragraphs aligned differently or loads of other stuff. So what I've got over here is my 8-hour Word basic course. I'm just going to go through a little
8 hours.
Now, I'm going to endeavour to be done in about 20 minutes. So
Yeah.
just see the highlights. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, no. One thing that is worth knowing about, this actually is useful, is the show hide button, this little backwards P. It's sort of, it isn't a beginner's feature, but it also is. If I click on that, it shows markup. Now, markup, yeah, it shows things. It shows things like hard carriage returns, which are represented by that paragraph mark. It shows spaces, which are represented by those dots. And if I press the tab key, it shows tab marks, which are represented by a little arrow pointing to the right. The reason this is really useful is that it's great for getting an old document and you're formatting it, trying to make it look nice, or a text document, and you're trying to work out where all the carriage returns are and things. But the reason it's useful when you're an absolute beginner is that if you go to someone's document and it looks like that, and you're like, wow, what's going on? It's nice to know how to turn it off, like so. And I did get called out as an engineer once to a client site because they said there's a problem with the screen. I need to find out that it was just because somebody had clicked on that. But that was a long time ago. So what I'm going to do now is just create a document using a function that's built into Word. It's a great way of just getting a lot of text on the screen. So there's some text on the screen. Now, navigating one's way around a document, you can use the cursor keys, in other words, the ones with the arrows on them, to go up, down, left, right, as one would imagine. A quick way is just to click and get to the area that you want using the mouse and the pointer. But once you're in an area, then you can do things like insert paragraph marks, and by that I mean lines. So if this was the end of a paragraph there, then I can hit return, and then I've got a carriage return there. So I can now separate those as separate paragraphs. Word's a little weird if you're not used to it, in that no area on the screen exists until it contains or has contained something. So for example, if I want to go down there and type something, if I click there, nothing will happen. If I ferociously click there, like I want it to really work, it will actually take me there. And the reason for that is it will just fill out the rest of the screen with carriage returns. But normally an area like here, for example, doesn't exist until you hit return and get down to that area. And sometimes when people have never used a word processor before, they find that all a bit strange. And so equally, the area over here doesn't exist. So I can't just click to go there because there's nothing there. If I want to get to the right, I either have to press the tab key to jump over, or press the space bar, or better still, type stuff. So that's how the screen navigation generally works. It only lets you go to places that you've already put stuff. So if I wanted this bit to appear at the bottom, I'd have to go to the beginning of that and then hit return, and then that could go to the bottom of the page. Unless I wanted to make it a footer, but then that's something different. So swallow my coffee first. Now we have a document. We can format it and do stuff. Now, in ye ancient times, people used to use word processors where they'd say, right, I'm going to do a title. And they'd press the underline on button and then type the title and then press the underline off button afterwards. And you'd have an underlined title. And you'd go through your document working on that principle and say, like, right, I'm going to turn the bold on, type the word that should be bold, turn the bold off. People don't do things like that anymore because these days we have mice and we have graphical user interfaces and nice quick ways of doing stuff. So instead, if you're writing a document, the idea is that you rattle it all out as quickly as you can, get it on the page, and then go through and format it afterwards. So here's an example of something that's been thrown on the page and now needs formatting. So the way to format things is to select the stuff that you want formatted and then do things to it. So if I wanted to underline this title here, I could click and drag, and that would select the title. I should really just get rid of that full stop because that's not a title, full stop. That'd be bad grammar. I could click and drag to select it, and then I can now format it accordingly. And I can either do that by clicking on the little underline button there, or I could have right mouse clicked and used the shortcut menu to select the underline button there. Or I could have pressed the shortcut for underline, which if you don't know what it is, the keyboard shortcut that is, you can hover over the button and it will say Control U. And oddly enough, if I'd wanted bold, for example, that would be Control B. Stuff. But clicking and dragging to highlight things is okay, but the whole point of doing it properly is to be efficient. So if I wanted to make the word video bold, I could just click on it, and you think, oh, I don't want to do that dragging, but I could just double click, like so, and that selects the word. Then I can make it bold. Or if I wanted to do this whole paragraph here, if I want to make that italic, then I can do treble click. So we go 1, 2, 3, boom, whole paragraph. And now I can do Control I and it's italic. And now, I'm trying to think what to do next. Unbold and italic. If I want to do something really big and clever, I've got my glasses on for this to find the sentence. That'll do. That sentence there. I can use Control and double click. Oh, no, it's just single click actually. That would have been really slick, but I just screwed that up. Right, take that last bit out. Right, I can do Control and single click, and it selects a sentence. Not a lot of people know that. So that's selecting stuff and formatting stuff. So you can format words, sentences, you know, paragraphs. Double click for a word, treble click for a paragraph, and shift and no control, and click for a sentence. I'm going to make that italic. Now, moving on from editing text. Oh, yeah, there's another thing to say about editing text. This is one that's useful to know because people get caught out with it. There's two modes. There's insert mode and overtype mode. Now, most people quite happily never know that there's another mode. But if I click in front of the word video and type in hello, it inserts the word hello in front of the word video. You think, well, whoop-de-woo, that's not exactly new. But that's because it's in insert mode. It is possible to change it to overtype mode. And we can see down there where it says insert. If I press the actual insert key on my keyboard, where's that gone? Oh, there it is. It does nothing. Hang on a minute, I'm supposed to toggle it. Press it like I mean it. Maybe if I just click on where it says insert, it would change it. They've taken support away for the insert key. Why did no one tell me this? Anyway, this is going to be a great video. So if I click on where it said insert, it'll change to overtype. And now it's in overtype mode. And where I've got hello video, if I just type in VHS on top of it, it overwrites it. Now you can look at it thinking that is not a useful feature, and to be fair, it isn't really. There are reasons why you might do that to try and keep things lined up, but basically it's to treat your document like you're using a typewriter when you put it into overtype mode. And the only reason I ever tell people about this function is because when it used to be on the insert key, which it isn't anymore, and this is probably why they've taken it off, people would sometimes accidentally hit the insert key and then go, why is all my stuff disappearing when I'm typing in front of it? And it is because they've changed it to overtype mode. So if you know that it exists, you'll know how to change it, and that is to click on there. So you'll probably never do that by accident, because who would? Now that you now that it's not easy to do. So yeah, that can come out of the course. Anyway, right, delete that paragraph. Deleting stuff, that's quite important as well, actually. As I said earlier, these days what you do is you rattle off the document, and then you format it. But also, if you want to get rid of something, you can select text and you can delete it. So you can press the backspace to delete it, or the small delete key. Now, these two delete keys are different. The reason that backspace is called backspace is because it deletes backwards. It deletes the stuff that comes before it. So if I press the big backspace key, that'll delete the word underline. Underline? Online even. And if I press the small delete key, it will delete things that appear after the cursor. And if I press the small delete key now, get rid of the word for. Again, pretty straightforward stuff, but sometimes it's not obvious. And the reason that that's important is because sometimes you want to do things like close up a paragraph, and you do that by deleting those paragraph symbols that we can't see at the moment. Whereas if I press the P button, we can see there's 3 paragraph symbols there that represent a hard carriage return. So if I press the small delete key 3 times, 1, 2, 3, it's just deleted them. And now I've got a big paragraph. So yeah, you can delete things by either selecting stuff and then pressing the delete key, or by pressing the delete key to do it one character at a time. When you select things, like I said, the word document there, because it's selected, it already means it's ready to be replaced. So if I wanted to get rid of that word and replace it with another word, I could press delete and then type a word in there, or I can just start typing. Whenever something is selected in Word or Windows in general, it means you can just overtype straight away. So if you save a document and the document name is highlighted, the reason it does that is because it's expecting you to save it with a different name. So you can just start typing and it'll replace it, which could save you seconds eventually. So other things about working with text then, search and replace is really useful. Well, it's called find and replace these days because they're a bit more optimistic about it. So if I wanted to replace the word header with something, I could click on, let's find a better word, let's replace the word book. If I want to replace that, what I'd do is click at the beginning of my document, because when you start searching or using the find function, it starts from where your cursor currently is. And so rather than go to find, I'm going to press the replace button. And here it says, what are you looking for? And I'm looking for the word book. And I can either just do a find and it'll find it, or if I use the find section, you see there, it looks exactly the same, except it's only got the find a bit there. But if I click on replace, I can say replace with what? Replace book with TV. And now I can either say replace all, and it will just do it like that, or I can say find next, and it will find it, and then I can replace that one. And that's it, there's no more instances of book. Or if I say replace the word Word with Excel, I can just say replace, and it will do the next one, or I can just say replace all. I'm going to go through and it's replace 7. And so that's how you do replace. The easiest way is to click on replace, or you can press Control H. That is really obvious. Replace. Or you can normally do, sure, Control 5. Yeah, well, just 5 on its own brings up the same dialog box. Anyway, F5 that is. Yeah, sorry, not 5. So that's find and replace or search and replace editing general. So good. That's like the first hour of the course done. Formatting text. I think we've got the general grip of it. This is the font formatting dialog box group. I mean, if we click on this flyout, we'll get the dialog box. Loads of different typefaces available. It's good to not mix typefaces in a document because it looks horrible. But if you're looking for something different, you can scroll down and get a feel for how they look. Or if you go into the dialog box, then down here it gives you a sample, and so you can kind of like scroll through and see what looks interesting and exciting. Some of them aren't designed to be used as normal text, things like webdings and wingdings. They're designed to be funny characters, like if you want a desert island or you want a pointing finger or something. If you want any of those weird characters and you don't know where they are and how to find them, there's a better screen. I'll come back to that next. But everything from the font list, well, everything from the font, to be correct, because there are typefaces that appear in a font. Anyway, won't go into that in detail. That's too boring. But everything that's in the font can be regular italic, bold, or bold italic, and it can be all kinds of different sizes. And if a size you want isn't listed, so 36 isn't big enough, but 46 is too big, then you can type in there 42 and it will scale it. And then you've got all the other settings, which I'm not going to go through. So that's font formatting. You can also do things like colour the text, colour the background, sort out adverse capitalization. That's a great sentence. In other words, make things capital or lowercase without retyping it by using that tool up there. But if you want to put a weird character in, you can do that by going to the Insert tab and then go to Symbol. And then in here, there's a whole bunch of characters that are recently used. Or if I click on More Symbols, there's a whole bunch of other things in this dialog box that took its time to arrive. There you go, loads of things. and these can be attached to shortcuts, as I believe we've previously discussed. Yeah, so if I wanted a little alien to turn up, I could click on that and I could say shortcut key, and then I'd have to find a key that is available, which I'm not going to do because it'll probably go horribly wrong. But you can just click on insert and insert the little alien head here. If I close that, there it goes. Oh, sweet. Anyway, that's the insert symbol thing. Back to the home tab. Right, what we'll do now is paragraph formatting, because that's really important to know about. And then if anyone's got any questions, then feel free to jump in. Actually, do I need to do saving? Does everyone know how to save documents?
Yeah.
You just do file and save. And if it hasn't got a name, it'll come up the save as screen. If it has, it will just save it in the previous location. But the save as screen, you can put it into various different places, or you can click on browse. And while I cover up what information is behind it, then you can browse on your hard drive where to put it. I'm not going to go into that because it's not interesting. So, paragraph formatting. By default, paragraphs are formatted something like this, or they're formatted in what's known as the normal style. Now, you might have horrendous spacing, well, horrendous line spacing by default in your paragraphs, and that's because, by default, for some reason, a lot of installations of Word think that you should have 1.5 times line spacing. Now, if you have that and you don't want it, then all you need to do is go into the normal style, right mouse click, go to modify, and change it on the line spacing thing. It'll be easy to go to here. Where's line spacing? Paragraph, line spacing, down the bottom there, change it to single. Or what you can do is you can just change your paragraph so that it's got the correct line spacing. Like let's make a paragraph here. So you can choose a paragraph that's got the correct line spacing, which you can achieve by going up to the line spacing button and changing it to 1. And then if you just sort of have your cursor there and go up to this, you can right mouse click and say update to match selection, and it will match your selection. But if you go to modify, you can make whatever changes you like to the normal style. And then provided that you tick this box here or select this box, when you say OK, it'll be like that next time you go in. Or for any new documents, it'll be like that. So, other than that, paragraphs look like this by default, which means they've got left aligned text, single line spacing, and a jagged right edge where there's no justification. All these things can be changed by these buttons up here. I could take the title and center it. That would look awful. Actually, that doesn't look that bad. I can take this paragraph and click here and justify it, and it will look like it's come out of the 90s when it used to be trendy to do such things. Or I could even have an address or a paragraph or something and right align it so that it looks sort of like that. So there's various settings for paragraphs here, but if you want to do them in a really detailed way, you can use the flyout, and it'll pop out like this. This is good if you want to indent stuff. Now, what this paragraph formatting will do is it'll only affect the current paragraph. So if I wanted to affect all of my paragraphs, I'd have to select them all by clicking and dragging or doing Control-A to select all, which I don't want to do. I just want to mess up this paragraph instead. So if I click on this flyout, we can do things like change the alignment. We can then get onto the wacky world of indents. Now, this is really easy to use. It just looks like it should be, difficult because it doesn't look very friendly. You can choose the left side or the right side and add an indent to it. You don't have to do the same. You can do either or none. An indent is just an extra bit of space in addition to the margin. So if I wanted this stuff here, this paragraph, to appear right aligned, but not be as far over to the left, I could make the left indent something like, 5 centimeters. That might be a bit excessive. I could also give it a 1 centimeter right indent. And if I say OK to that, it looks really awful. But you might want it to look that way. Let's do something different. Let's do this one. If I go into here again, I can go to paragraph, and I could indent. I could indent it by 1 centimetre on the left. And if I tick this box here, mirror indents. It'll mirror the indent. If I click on OK, it should be 1 centimetre both sides. That's not right. Anyway, ignore that. I could have 1 centimetre each side if I wanted to. It would make it sort of stand out like a news story or something. But I could also use these special indents. Now, I don't know how often this gets used. Doesn't look really very good in my opinion, but the way it works is you can either select first line or hanging. They're kind of the opposite of each other. What the first line indent does is it indents the first line, shockingly enough. And what a hanging indent does is it doesn't indent the first line, but it indents the rest of the paragraph. And then here you can decide how much you want to indent it by. So if I say first line and indent it by 2 centimetres, I'm going to get rid of these indents here because they're silly. And then I'm going to try not to say indent much. So I say OK to that. First line, it's got the extra bit of space in front of it, which used to be how people started their letters. So maybe that's nice. Or if I want to do the other way round, I could go into paragraph formatting. So I can do that also by right mouse click and click on paragraph. And then change it from first line to hanging, which is exactly the opposite. So like I say, it's not one of these things that I find particularly useful, but then some people might find it really useful. But it's always useful to know how these things are done in case someone else has done it and you want to edit your document and turn that thing off. So that's paragraph formatting. These are the options for making it look slightly different. And then down the bottom, we've got spacing. This is important to know about as well. Line spacing is straightforward enough. Really, the only options that matter in there are single, and multiple. So you can have one line spacing, or you can have multiple, which would be 2, 1.5, 3, 5, 7, depending on the kind of document you're working with. The others in between are kind of shortcuts to that. So you can select 1.5 or double, which is also known as 2. At least and exactly, or if you're going to be using lots of different font sizes or working with pictures, because sometimes you'll hear a carriage return at the wrong place and you'll get a space that's not as big as you want it to be, because or it's too big because the characters are bigger on one line than the other. So this way, it will change the point size. But you'll know when you need it, but basically that's line spacing. Here, we've got a feature which I find really useful, and I think it's a bit of an not an expert one, that just sounds arrogant. It's a bit of a connoisseur's one, I suppose, which is where you put spacing before or after a paragraph. I use it to be lazy if I'm writing course notes, rather than hitting return twice at the end of a paragraph. If I just say, after a paragraph, add another 11 points, then all I need to do is hit return once, and then at the end of a paragraph will turn into a proper paragraph finish. You can also do the same thing before a paragraph, and so you hit return, and then the next paragraph's got extra space in front of it. So there's ways of using it, but to a lot of people, they look at that and think, well, that's daft, but it does actually look quite effective sometimes. Anyway, that's pretty much all there is to say about paragraph formatting. All of these options are generally available from the paragraph group, but sometimes it's just easier to use that flyout. And if you wonder why it's not affecting the whole document, it's because it only affects the paragraph that's selected. So if you want to do the whole document, you have to select the whole document. We can do tabs and things from that section as well. And if anybody desperately wants to know about tabs, stops, and how they work, I'll explain that. It can be found on that button there. But what I was thinking of doing was going for a quick explanation of pictures next instead. Unless anybody has any other questions or anything they'd like to see Any questions?
If I was say that was a list and I wanted to put numbers on it, sometimes when I'm doing, I click on the number key thing up there, whatever you call it, tab.
Yeah.
And they'll all go out. It goes out of kilter when I'm typing. Is there a quick way of doing that, or?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, if I select my list and then say, right, I want number formatting, I click on that. It gives me numbers. Yay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily give me what I want. And so the trick is to click on the drop down and take a look at all the previous different formats to see if any of them are right. And if none of them are, then just go in to define your own. And you can do that by going in there and saying, yeah, I want it to be a physical number rather than letters or Roman numerals. This is the number style I want, 1, 2, 3, again, rather than Roman numerals. Choose the alignment, but also you can choose the spacing that isn't listed there. There's no spacing listed there. Hang on a minute. Maybe I have to do that in. So which? Yeah, let's do it in outlining instead. Right. Find your number style. Right. You can get rid of. Is it the indent that is the issue?
Yeah, normally. Yeah, most of the time.
So here, for example, this is now no longer indented. Now I could have changed that by either. Let's turn that off. Turn it on again. So, it's working there. I want to break it again. Go back to the way you were. Let me do some undos to get it back where it was. A quick way to get that from not being indented is just to go to the outdent button, which is there. Decrease indent, or press Shift and Tab. I'll put it. Unfortunately, there's not an option in here to define a number type that doesn't have an indent. Once you've changed it, it stays that way. And so if I do another list, like further down the page, when I select that, this time it'll do it without indenting it. He says this about testing it first. Ta-da! but yeah, the easy thing to do is just unindent it. And the way you do that is either click on that button there or do Shift and the Tab key at the same time. Or change your mind, it's a Tab key and you can indent it lots more.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, there you go.
Right, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so Joe's not got any questions, so I'm just going to run through some picture stuff now. This is going to be a very quick bit of picture formatting because I'm trying to spend less time going on. Trying to run on less often. That's it. That's the expression I'm using. We could actually do a whole thing on formatting pictures at some point if it's interesting enough. But for now, this was just about getting pictures in there, getting them lined up properly. Michelle, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, please. Right, yes, please.
So if I go to pictures and I'll say from this device, and I've got a sneaky feeling that I'm going to find a picture of a Mexican chicken. There we go. Let's insert that one. Click on insert. There's my picture. Whop. Now, like I say, there's loads of formatting options. In fact, the picture options in Word are better than they've ever been. There's so much you can do these days, but I'm not going to. We can do that another day. Instead, I'm just going to change the alignment. When you put a photo or a picture of any kind into a document, by default, it inserts it where your current cursor is in your insertion point. It treats it like a letter of the alphabet. In that, if I had a sentence, if that would have fitted on the previous page, I could have put it in the middle of a sentence, and then you'd have sentence finishing, and then more of it appearing afterwards. It would just look a mess. So the important thing is to decide how it's going to appear. And if I click on this button, we can either leave it by the default option, which is in line with text, which is probably the least useful one, or we can choose other options here. Square is kind of one of the most popular ones, and if I click on that, it'll probably it'll move it up. Yeah. So this means that the text will wrap around it, and now I can grab the image, and if I move it down, the text will still wrap around it. I mean, that text won't, because somebody messed up the paragraph on that one. So the text will wrap around it, but but it has a bit of a gap. What I can also do is do this one, which makes it a tighter gap. So just a slightly smaller space around it, which is hardly noticeable on the Mexican chicken. We can do either of these two options as well, where I can either make it appear, I'll make it appear like this. It looks exactly the same. Make it appear with the text wrapping around it if it was a different image format, but we can make it appear behind the text or in front of the text, which for some things, like if you're doing a watermark, that would make more sense to appear behind it, etc., etc. Or on top of it would, oops, that's the wrong button. On top would make it, well, if that was a different image type and the gap around it was transparent, that'd be okay, but you'd still have letters covered up by the colouring bit. So that's the important thing, first of all, is get the right kind of position, and then it's sizing it correctly. So if I say in line with the text, now it's treating it as text, and it will align it based on the paragraph alignment, so it could be left centered or right aligned. Let's put it on its own line. Yeah, so right, center, left. And if you're trying to arrange it so you've got sort of like 3 or 4 pictures going on the page, that's just going to look weird or wrong unless they just sort of happen to be spaced out properly. So the best way of doing it, actually, let's do a few copies of this. Right. If I wanted to align it so those were centered, for example, in theory, because they're set to align with text, I could just hit that button and that would be fine. And then if I wanted even spaces between them, I can go in between them and space them using the space bar or using the tab key, because they are effectively just pieces of text. But if I wanted to arrange them in a more detailed way, the better way of doing it would be to change it so that they are either on top or behind text or got wrapping or whichever one suits. And so then you can take it and you can position it wherever you like without being restricted by the location of text and things. So in theory, that should answer all of your questions about positioning stuff. Does it answer any of them? Does that make any sense? No.
Yeah, I mean, that looks straightforward. And I don't know whether it's because you've just picked up the same image. And obviously, it's probably when I've been bringing in images of a different size, or you might want to use a bit of portrait, you might want to use a bit of landscape. And it's trying to get them all in a row, obviously at the same height and obviously with the same spacing. And occasionally, I've played around with that for a while to make that happen. And I just thought there might be a really quick and easy way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other way of doing it is, if you've got a document like this, a nice landscape document, and you just want to have, I don't know, 12 pictures in there, and you just can't seem to get them quite to line up right, and it's driving you bats, you can just cheat. And the way you cheat is to insert a table. Where's the button for tables? There it is, one that says table. So I'm going to do a table of that size, I reckon. Yeah. And you can use that as a kind of framework for where you want things to appear. But what I do need to do, and I won't do it just now, actually I will do it, no I won't, is I can turn the border off, otherwise you'll see the border. So now though, I'm going to treat the pictures as text again by not changing the position of how text wraps around them. And I'm just going to insert loads of different picture shapes and sizes by going to the Insert tab and clicking on Picture on this device. So I'm going to use, oh gosh, these are big pictures as well. If I do that, it'll be a right mess. I need to resize that a bit. Where's the corner? In fact, let me go to Format Picture and change the size of that to picture color. Where's the blimmin' size setting?
So I've always done it with the height and the width in the top right hand corner.
Yeah, that was quicker than me trying to find it. I'm going to change that to 10 centimeters. That's still quite big though, isn't it? Pesky thing. Let me, I want to do it by percentages, so that it's proportional. Right, size. That's what I'm looking for. God, I couldn't do this as a job. Never find anything. So if I go into here instead and leave it on log aspect ratio and change that to about 10%. There you go, that's a decent size. So now if I insert another picture that's going to be a completely different size and shape, like our friend Mr. Piri Piri. And then what I can do there is click on the flyout next to size, and it needs to be about 25% of the original size, I reckon. Oh no, that's way too small. Let's make that about 50% of the original size. And these aren't designed, I'm not doing this to make them consistent in their shapes, because they won't be, because they're different images, but I'm showing how you can get them to line up. And then let's just do another couple of pictures. Another one there. These are really weird images. These are Microsoft official weird images from the Microsoft Weird Image Gallery. Oh, baby's feet. Right. Now, if I go through and resize these so that they're the kind of size that would work. There is a quicker way of doing this. I'm not going to tell you though, we're in the fun when we on the image course. So they're sort of, yeah, you can't really tell they're all lined up because they're all different shapes, but they're lined up within the table. And if I put some more in, just one or more. And again, I'll resize that one. Let's do that down to 10%, 4%. So I can select the whole thing and make them all centered. Oops, centered. Very centered. I said centered. They just wasn't listening to me. Now they're all centered sort of so there's space in an appropriate way, and then in theory, if I turn off the borders now by saying no border, then I should end up with loads of weird shaped pictures that are all perfectly aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah. That really doesn't convey it very well, but if there was more pictures there, that would be a whole bunch of weirdly shaped stuff all lined up as good as you could get it. And if they were resized to take up the whole of the cell, then they would also butt up against each other. I think it depends on the thing you're putting in there. If there's actual photographs, then it would be better. Does that answer it?
That's brilliant. Yeah, again, definitely. The way forward is to use a table. That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Good. That's a relief. Right, I'll stop talking now then. Okay, so does anybody else have any questions about anything?
No, thank you.
No, I don't think so.
Good.
Nope.
Okie doke. Well, on Monday, I'm going to be running through some publisher stuff for Michelle. So if you can think of any questions between now and Monday, Michelle, feel free to email me. I'm going to try and come up with some useful quick tips in that. And then after the rest of the week, it's going to be a variety of bits and bobs, time-saving stuff, and also some things about Cisco WebEx, which is what we're looking at now. So you can have meetings like those Zoom meetings where you spend 3 hours drinking gin, without the security risks that come with using Zoom and gin. But So yeah, if you think of any questions or if you've got any requests, just email me or email the office or ask me next time. But
Okay.
thanks for coming along today.
All
Hopefully
right.
I'll see you
Thanks
next
a lot.
week and have a
Yep.
great weekend.